Gilded Age Reactions documentary by Robert McVeigh, Omar Ramirez, Bronson Taggart, and Connor Trail. During the Gilded Age, the United States was met with a period of immense change. This caused many different reactions to take place due to the abuses of power and problems that were generated during this time. Many social reforms came together in hopes to solve these problems in American cities. The reactions of such people caused great effects on America as a whole and have affected life today. Railroads' rates and practices had a huge effect on this. As railroads came to the U.S., it brought both benefits and doubts. It helped cities grow and increased westward expansion while also stimulating the growth of other industries such as steel, iron, coal, lumber, and glass. Railroads also brought forth corruption, as it charged higher rates to Western farmers. This erupted many protests from small farming businesses and farmers, which is called the Granger Movement, a group assimilated by farmers originally to discuss agricultural styles and disband inefficient methods. Since railroads were their means of transportation to sell goods and get supplies they needed, they noticed they were charged higher rates than larger corporations. They fought against the monopolies that caused this, and their voices were heard, which caused the Interstate Commerce of 1887. This act was designed to regulate the railroad industry. It also granted Congress the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states. The corruption throughout the U.S. also caused labor unions, which rose as the working conditions got worse during the Gilded Age. One of these unions was the American Federation of Labor, which actually made up several different unions but was generally considered as skilled workers. However, the AFL, American Federation of Labor, only allowed white males in, but it still won better pay and shorter weeks for workers. Another labor union was the Knights of Labor. This labor union was much more progressive, as it allowed any members of race or gender in any skill. Another labor union was the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, which was a group that represented the women's clothing industry. Their members were primarily Jewish immigrants who worked in sweatshops. They had successful strikes in both 1909 and 1910, which gave them better working areas, higher wages, and shorter days. Labor unions also caused many other strikes. Some examples are the Homestead Strike of 1892, which was against a Carnegie steel plant. Another strike was the Pullman Strike of 1894, which was a railroad strike by 120,000 workers, which only stopped when the federal government was intervened. Sometimes protests by labor unions would get violent and turn to riots. One example of this was the Haymarket Riot of 1886, which started when someone threw a bomb at the police. These riots didn't represent labor unions as a whole and caused the public to view them as radical, violent, and foreign. The Hull House was established in 1889 by Jane Addams and Ellen Gates Starr. It was founded in order to provide services to the working poor. This mainly included European immigrants, as they couldn't afford these services a lot of the time. It also helped assimilate these immigrants and gave them more rights. Thomas Nast was a political cartoonist who critiqued political machines, which were groups of people who controlled the activities of a political party. He was especially critical of William Tweed, who was the city boss of Tammany Hall, a democratic political machine in New York City. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1880 was passed in order to prevent monopolies, there were many of this in this era. It outlawed several companies that restrained trade or commerce. However, it took a while to take hold because the people that owned these monopolies had most of the power and wealth in the U.S., so they could just ignore this law. This was due to the corruption in the government at the time. Those are citations. The end. Thank you.